Sloan, after 16 years with Nexora, we're restructuring your position, Ellen Brody told me, her voice laced with a thin veneer of sympathy that didn't quite mask her satisfaction. The company's heading in a different direction, Tanya chimed in as she slid a manila folder across the table toward me. Your work's been appreciated, but we're rolling the research division into product development now. I gave a slow nod, taking the folder without bothering to open it. I already knew what was inside. The usual severance paperwork, 2 weeks' pay for every year I'd been there, health benefits for another 3 months, and a brochure full of career transition services I had no plans of using. I understand completely, I said, keeping my tone calm and even. These things are never easy. Both women visibly relaxed, like they'd been bracing for a meltdown. I could see it in their eyes. They were expecting tears, maybe some anger, a bit of pleading. But I wasn't giving them that. I was a 55-year-old woman being nudged out of an industry obsessed with youth and shiny new faces. What they didn't realize was, I'd been preparing for this day ever since a stray email thread landed in my inbox about a month ago. We'd like you to clear out your desk by Friday, Ellen continued, sounding more confident now that I wasn't putting up a fight. We'll need your key card, your laptop, and the company phone turned in before you go. Your team will be informed later today. My team. 6 incredibly smart engineers I'd personally recruited and mentored, each one of them a star in their own right. Together, we'd built the distributed processing algorithm that had become the backbone of Nexora's crown jewel, LedgerCore, the accounting platform used by over 40% of Global 500 companies. Got it? I said, standing up. Is there anything else you need from me? They exchanged a quick glance, caught off guard by how composed I was. Ellen recovered first. That's all. And thank you for handling this so professionally. On my way back to my office, I passed the glass-walled conference room where my team was deep in a meeting. Through the transparent wall, I spotted Bradley Kane, the CEO, pacing in front of a PowerPoint slide that read, Fiscal Outlook, Q3. There he was, gesturing like a visionary. The same Bradley who had stood on stage at last year's industry summit and taken full credit for the algorithm I built, referring to me only as a member of our talented research group. I closed my office door behind me and pulled out my personal phone. I tapped out a quick message. It's happening. Friday is my last day. The reply came almost instantly. Perfect timing. Contracts are ready. Dinner tonight to go over the details? I glanced at the calendar on my desk. It was Wednesday. My last day at Nexora would be Friday. And Monday? Monday had something else entirely in store. That evening, I met up with Marcus Linwood at Saffron House, a sleek, high-end restaurant miles away from Nexora's headquarters. Marcus, the CEO of ArcLight Technologies, Nexora's biggest rival, understood the importance of keeping things under wraps. He'd booked a private corner of the restaurant, tucked behind elegant Japanese screens where no one could overhear us. So they actually did it, Marcus said with a shake of his head after we placed our orders. I figured it was a possibility, but to cut loose the person who invented their core tech? That's wild. Bradley never truly understood what I created, I replied, taking a sip of water. He saw the flashy parts, the UI, the marketing hook. But the deep architecture? That was all just technical noise to him. Honestly, the whole thing had a touch of poetic justice. About 3 months earlier, I'd stumbled on a critical detail. Nexora had never filed the patent for my algorithm. When I asked about it, legal chalked it up to an oversight and promised they'd fix it right away. But something about that response didn't sit right with me. So I started digging into our internal systems, and that's when I found it. A strategy memo, plain as day. It spelled out plans to repackage the algorithm as company-owned IP, with no mention of me as its inventor. The idea was to ease me out before they secured the patent. Because, legally, anything built while on the job usually belongs to the company. What they didn't realize was that I'd already started refining the algorithm on my own time, using my personal gear. The improvements I made bumped up processing efficiency by a full 43%, and none of it fell under my employment contract. I filed a patent under my own name last month, fully documented, time-stamped, and backed by development logs showing it was all done off the clock. And thanks to Marcus's introduction to a powerhouse IP attorney, that patent had sailed through in record time. All the paperwork's good to go. Marcus said now, sliding a folder across the table. Once you sign, ArcLight Technologies gets exclusive rights to license the algorithm. Press release goes out Monday morning. You'll be introduced as our new Chief Innovation Officer. I went over the documents again, though I already knew every clause. A 7-figure signing bonus. A generous equity package. Ongoing royalties for every product that used the tech I'd built. What do you think Bradley's reaction will be when he finds out? Marcus asked, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. I'm honestly more worried about my team, I told him. They don't deserve to get caught in the crossfire. We've already taken care of that, Marcus assured me. We've got offers lined up for all 6 of them. Senior-level positions, significant pay bumps. I signed the last page and closed the folder. Just like that, I'd taken back control of my future, looked out for my people, and made sure the credit for my work landed where it always should have been. To fresh starts, Marcus said as he raised his glass. And to finally owning what's mine, I replied, tapping my glass against his with a quiet smile. Thursday and Friday went by in a rush, a blur of exit interviews, handoff meetings, and saying goodbye to folks I'd shared hallways and coffee machines with for over a decade. I stayed composed, professional to the end, even as word of my departure began to ripple through the building. The admin staff gave me those familiar looks, the kind people give when they're not sure what to say but want you to know they're sorry. A few younger developers stopped me in the halls, a little awkward and hesitant, asking if I'd be willing to write LinkedIn recommendations for them. I said yes, of course. I wasn't leaving them behind. I was pulling them forward. I documented everything, every login, every handoff, every single workflow. Not because I felt generous, but because I wanted a record. Something that showed I left things in perfect order, while they hadn't. That transition document? It wasn't a courtesy. It was my insurance. My proof that I'd played by the book, even as the company quietly pulled the rug out from under me. During my final exit interview on Friday afternoon, Tanya from HR read through her checklist with all the warmth of a robot. You acknowledge that any intellectual property created during your time here belongs to Nexora, she said, sliding a non-disclosure form toward me. I smiled and replied evenly. Naturally. Anything developed during work hours, using company resources, as part of my role. I made sure to stress those details. During, using, as part of. But Tanya, head down and box checking, didn't even flinch. And you confirm that you haven't retained any proprietary information? She asked next. I haven't taken a single thing that belongs to Nexora, I said honestly, because I hadn't. The patent was mine, and I'd made sure every aspect of it was clean, clear, and mine alone. Back at my desk, I started packing up my personal things. A couple of framed family photos, a stack of conference badges collected over 16 years of tech events, the coffee mug my team had given me last Christmas, the one that said Code Whisperer in glittery silver text. Then, of course, the small award I'd won for developing the very algorithm at the heart of all this. As I wrapped it in tissue paper, the irony made me smirk. Ellen showed up in the doorway just as I was sealing the last box. She leaned against the frame, trying hard to look casual. Just wanted to make sure everything's squared away for your departure, she said, watching my hands. Everything's in order, I said, placing the award carefully into the box like it was made of glass. In a way, it kind of was. She hesitated for a second, then added, you know, these decisions aren't ever personal. Bradley just thinks the company needs to, well, go in a more youthful direction. I looked her straight in the eye. I completely understand. Business is business. Something in my voice made her blink. Just for a second, a flicker of doubt passed across her face. But she quickly shook it off. I was just another aging employee walking out the door. What harm could I possibly do? Planning to take a little break now? She asked, like she cared. Actually, I'm starting something new on Monday, I said. That got her attention. Oh, that's quick. What kind of role? I gave her a grin. Leadership. I'm looking forward to it. She nodded, though her mind was clearly already drifting elsewhere. Well, good luck with that. With my keycard turned in and my belongings boxed up, I stepped out of Nexora's glass tower for the last time. I paused, just outside to take one last look. Up on the top floor, I could see lights glowing in the executive boardroom. Probably another late meeting where they were divvying up my responsibilities among younger hires with slimmer salaries and flashier titles. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that in just 3 days, that same room would be in full-blown panic mode. Monday morning arrived crisp and bright. I slipped into my new charcoal suit, tailored, sharp, and meant for making statements, and was waiting when the ArcLight Technologies town car pulled up at exactly 7:30 a.m. The press release went live at 7. Marcus told me when I arrived. I stepped into my new office, complete with panoramic views and a quiet elegance that made Nexora's glass fishbowl feel like a cubicle. Industry blogs are already picking it up, he added. Our comms team's tracking the response. The announcement had been crafted like a scalpel. ArcLight Technology secures exclusive rights to cutting-edge processing algorithm. Welcomes Dr. Sloan Carter as Chief Innovation Officer. It laid out my story, my background, my role as the sole inventor, and how ArcLight Technologies would be baking my tech into their next wave of products. The line that really mattered, the one that made the entire industry sit up straight. Any current users of the technology must establish licensing agreements with ArcLight Technologies moving forward. At exactly 9:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Devin, my former lead dev. Total meltdown here. What the hell did you do? I grinned and texted back. Check your personal email. You've all got offers. Meanwhile, over at Nexora HQ, that weekly Monday leadership meeting had veered way off script. Devin's updates kept coming in real time. Apparently, Bradley had walked into the office to find the general counsel and CFO waiting outside his door, both looking like they'd seen a ghost. The announcement had hit inboxes all at once, and the alarm bells went off instantly. By 9:30, the routine check-in had been scrapped. The board was dialing in from wherever they were. Legal was knee-deep in my employee file, desperately combing through my contract and any paperwork related to the algorithm's development. They were trying to find a loophole, a way to undo what had already been set in motion. But they wouldn't find one, because I'd made sure of that. They're pulling everything with your name on it, Devin messaged. They just rolled in the entire server rack from research so the tech team can dig through it. I could picture it without needing a photo. Bradley pacing around the boardroom like a cornered animal, firing off questions at Ellen and legal, trying to find someone to blame. The stock had probably already started dipping. Investors don't react well to surprises, especially ones that come with legal implications and missing patents. At exactly 10:45 a.m., an email from Bradley landed in my inbox. I could feel the panic in the subject line alone. Sloan, there appears to be a misunderstanding. Please call me at your earliest convenience so we can clarify. I didn't even blink. I just forwarded it straight to the legal team at ArcLight Technologies and moved on with my day. By noon, the story had spread like wildfire through the industry. Analysts were buzzing, social media had caught wind, and I'd already received 3 interview requests from top tech publications asking for my take on the move that was shaking up the accounting software world. Nexora's stock had dropped 7% since the market opened. Ours? Up 12% and climbing. How's it feel? Marcus asked, stopping by my office as I unpacked a few things. Honestly, I said, leaning back in my new chair, it feels like justice. 15 years of having others take credit for my ideas. Of being told I should just be grateful to be included, like I was some guest in a house I helped build. And now, finally, I wasn't just in the room. I was leading the conversation. My new executive assistant appeared at the doorway. Dr. Carter, the dev team is ready for you in the main conference room. And, just so you're aware, Nexora's CEO has called 4 times in the last hour. Let him know I'm booked solid today, I said smoothly. Our legal team will be in touch later this week to start licensing talks. On the way to my meeting, my phone buzzed again. Another update from Devin. Board just called an emergency meeting. Bradley looks like he's about to have a stroke. P.S. My team and I are in. When do we start? That made me smile. Next Monday, I replied. By Tuesday morning, the full weight of what had happened had landed at Nexora like a ton of bricks. They were just starting to realize the gravity of losing me and my patent. Their flagship product, LedgerCore, was entirely dependent on the algorithm I designed. Without a licensing agreement, they had two options. Neither was great. They could try to negotiate with us, which would mean paying a premium. Or they could rebuild the whole engine from the ground up, a process that would drain years and millions from their already shaky budget. At 2 p.m., I got another ping from Devin. Bradley's called an all hands. He's trying to calm everyone down. Today's my last day, by the way. We'll see you Monday. Also, rumor is they're gearing up to sue. I forwarded the message to our legal department. Their response was instant and reassuring. Let them. Your records are airtight. Devlogs, timestamps, proof you used your own gear, all clearly documented. We're ready. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new role like I'd been born for it. The respect I was shown at ArcLight Technologies felt like water after a long, dry drought. People actually listened when I spoke. No one talked over me. No one tried to reword my points and claim them as their own. For once, my experience wasn't treated like baggage. It was valued. We've started implementing your refinements, Marcus said during our afternoon strategy session. Early benchmarks are showing a 51% performance increase. Better than we projected. I kept a few tricks in my back pocket, I admitted. Once I realized they planned to phase me out, I stopped giving them my best ideas. Marcus grinned. Their mistake. Our win. He leaned back in his chair. Oh, and we got our first licensing inquiry this morning. Not from Nexora. They're still pretending this isn't happening. But Streamline Logic reached out. They're nervous about getting caught in the middle. At 3:30 p.m., Devin sent over a detailed summary of Bradley's company-wide address. Apparently, Bradley had tried to keep a brave face, assuring staff that Nexora would aggressively protect its technology. But people weren't buying it. The tension in the room was thick, and some employees had already started polishing up their LinkedIn profiles. Ellen looked like she might faint, Devin wrote, when someone straight up asked if they'd dropped the ball on patenting the algorithm. Bradley shut down the Q&A right after that. By Wednesday, the fallout was impossible to ignore. Two of Nexora's major clients had contacted us directly about migrating off LedgerCore. They didn't want to risk instability. Our stock kept climbing, another 8%, while Nexora's continued its downward slide. That afternoon, my phone lit up again. This time, it was Tanya from HR. The same Tanya who had calmly handed me my walking papers just a few days earlier. Sloan, she began, voice carefully measured. I'm reaching out to discuss the situation involving the patent. We believe there may have been a miscommunication about intellectual property ownership. I kept my voice steady. There's no confusion. My employment agreement is very clear. Anything I develop on my own time, using personal equipment, belongs to me. The patent documents back that up. Well, Bradley was hoping you'd be open to meeting in person to talk through some options, she said. If Nexora wants to have that conversation, they can go through our legal department, I replied. I'm sure they'll be happy to arrange a meeting to discuss licensing terms. There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear her trying to swallow her pride. I'll pass that along, she said eventually. Later that day, I stood in front of the ArcLight Technologies Board of Directors, presenting our strategic roadmap. My algorithm was front and center, refined, protected, and finally, under my name. And for the first time in years, I wasn't defending my place at the table. I was leading it, standing confidently at the head of the boardroom table, no longer tucked away in the background like I had been at Nexora. I caught Marcus's nod from across the room. It was subtle but proud, a silent confirmation that I was exactly where I belonged. By Friday, just a week after I'd walked out of Nexora for good, the company was spiraling. Their stock had nosedived 23% since Monday morning. The phones were lighting up with calls from nervous investors, and industry headlines were less than kind. Articles were popping up with titles like, "Can Nexora survive the algorithm fallout?" and "How one oversight could sink a giant." Through a few old contacts still on the inside, I heard that Bradley had finally stopped pretending everything was fine. He'd admitted to the board that they were in trouble. Their options were now painfully clear. Either license my patented algorithm from ArcLight Technologies, which wouldn't come cheap, or attempt a complete rebuild of Ledger Core, staying miles away from anything protected under my patent. Word is they've started interviewing for a new dev team, Devin told me during our video call that afternoon. We were catching up ahead of his transition to precision. Bradley's saying they'll recreate your work in 6 months. I actually laughed out loud. The original version took me 3 years, I said, and that was with a full understanding of the architecture and problem space. Exactly, Devin nodded. No one's buying his 6-month miracle. Especially not after our team all posted our resignation letters at the same time. That knowledge drain hit hard. Later that day, Nexora's legal team finally reached out to ours. They wanted to open formal talks about a licensing deal. We followed the plan Marcus and I had put together weeks earlier. Our legal response laid out terms that were legally reasonable, but strategically tough. 3 times the typical licensing rate. And just as importantly, a public statement crediting me as the original inventor. They'll choke harder on the public acknowledgement than the price, Marcus said as we reviewed the response in his office. Then let them rebuild, I replied. Every extra day they spend trying to recreate my work is another day we keep our lead. That next Monday, 10 days after Nexora showed me the door, I kicked off our first full team meeting with my new innovation crew. All 6 engineers from my old team were now seated around the table, energized, ready to get to work. We started sketching out the next-gen evolution of the algorithm. The room buzzed with real momentum. This is what a development meeting is supposed to feel like, Priya said, glancing around the table. At Nexora, half our time went to explaining basics to execs who didn't care. That's the difference between being appreciated and being seen as disposable, I told her. Here, your expertise actually counts. As we wrapped up, my assistant poked her head in. Dr. Carter, there's been an update from Nexora. Their board just announced a major leadership change. Bradley Kane is stepping down immediately. The news traveled fast. By late afternoon, the tech press had confirmed it. The board had lost confidence in Bradley's handling of the patent disaster and the company's response. Ellen Brody was out too, along with the head of legal. The leadership circle that once tried to silence my contributions had been completely gutted. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Daniel Mercer, Nexora's newly appointed interim CEO. Unlike Bradley's last-ditch message, this one was composed, professional, and direct. Dr. Carter, congratulations on your new role. I've been brought in to help guide Nexora through its current challenges. I'd like to open a conversation around a fair licensing agreement for your algorithm. We are also prepared to publicly acknowledge your role and make amends for the missteps of prior leadership. Would next week work for a meeting? I forwarded the message to Marcus, along with a single sentence. Phase 1 complete. His reply came back within minutes. Beautifully executed. The board is already celebrating your first major win. Looks like Nexora is finally learning the cost of underestimating innovation and the people behind it. 3 months later, I was on stage at the Global Future Tech Forum, about to deliver the keynote. The room was packed. Industry leaders, developers, journalists, even a few familiar faces from my Nexora days. Funny. Last year, I'd sat near the back, just part of the crowd, while Bradley stood at the podium boasting about his company's breakthroughs. Now I was the one stepping up to the mic. And now, the host announced, please welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Sloan Carter, Chief Innovation Officer at ArcLight Technologies, and the mind behind the algorithm that's reshaping how we manage data in the modern world. Applause rose as I made my way to the podium. I took a moment to breathe it in. This moment that, not long ago, had felt impossible. Thank you, I began, looking out at the sea of attentive faces. Today, I want to talk about innovation ownership and why it matters that we not only protect great ideas, but also respect the people who create them. My presentation dug into the technical evolution of my algorithm, yes, but it also touched on something bigger. I didn't name names, but the message was clear. Companies need to stop treating innovators like replaceable parts. Talent needs to be nurtured, not exploited. And if they don't learn that lesson, well, they might just find themselves on the wrong side of history. Later that evening, during the reception, a group of young women in engineering made their way over to me. One of them, probably just shy of 30, waited until the others had drifted off before speaking. Your story really shifted how I think, she said softly. I've started keeping detailed logs of all my projects, especially anything I work on outside company hours. I never used to think it mattered until I heard what happened to you. You're smart to do that, I told her, offering a warm smile. Your ideas are valuable. They deserve to be protected and credited. By the time I left the event, the ballroom had mostly emptied out. I glanced at my phone and saw a breaking news alert from one of the top tech publications. Nexora had officially announced a licensing agreement with ArcLight Technologies, and for the first time, they had acknowledged me by name as the original creator of the algorithm. Their stock had finally stopped bleeding, but it had settled well below where it had been a year ago, back when they still thought they didn't need me. Exactly 1 year to the day after being told to pack up my desk, I sat in my sunlit office at ArcLight Technologies, reviewing our quarterly innovation report. In just 12 months, under my leadership, the company had launched 3 major products, all powered by the algorithm I had once refined in the quiet corners of my apartment, long after office hours. Those products had grabbed a sizable chunk of the market, eating into Nexora's share and outpacing other competitors as well. A knock pulled me from the report. Marcus stepped in, carrying a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "Happy anniversary," he said with a grin, setting everything down on my desk. "The board wanted me to tell you before we go public. ArcLight Technologies has officially overtaken Nexora in market value. First time in our history." I didn't cheer or gloat. Instead, I felt a deep, settled kind of peace. I nodded slowly. That's what happens when you respect the people who build the future. As Marcus uncorked the bottle, my assistant stepped in with a sleek white envelope. Inside was a formal invitation, Women in Tech Vanguard Summit, keynote speaker, Dr. Sloan Carter. Topic: Owning your intellectual value. How one engineer changed an industry. Marcus noticed the envelope and gave a little laugh. "You've become something of a symbol," he said, lifting his glass. "There's a story going around boardrooms now, the one about the exec who didn't recognize what she had until it walked out the door." I chuckled, shaking my head slightly. Funny how that story used to be about someone else. After the crisis, Daniel Mercer, who had taken over as interim CEO of Nexora, ended up staying on. He'd pushed through a complete overhaul of their innovation policies, modeling their new approach after the one I had put in place here. Word was, they were finally treating inventors like the assets they are, instead of ghosts behind the curtain. "It was never about payback," I said, raising my glass. Marcus met my eyes. "I know. It was about making sure the people who build the foundation get their names on it. About showing that innovation isn't some anonymous spark. It comes from real people, people who deserve to be seen." "To being seen," Marcus said, clinking his glass against mine. "And credited." As the afternoon sun poured in through the tall windows of my office, I let myself take it all in for a moment. I was 56. And finally, after decades in tech, I had what I'd always been chasing. Not just a title or a salary, but something more lasting. Something that mattered. I had recognition. My name was now forever tied to the work I had built from the ground up. And it was exactly where it belonged.